Today's episode of Spector Creative is brought to you by The Ruler. Looking for a household object longer than 11 inches and shorter than 13? Choose The Ruler. Hey, toy fans. I'm Scott Toy Guru Neitlich. Welcome to Spector Creative. I'm a longtime toy fan and toy-making professional, and if you're anything like me, it means that you live in Greensboro, North Carolina, and enjoy home-sliced pizza every week because it's delicious. But if you're also like me as a collector, you may suffer from a certain issue that happens when you buy brand new toys, and that is shoulder-stuck syndrome. Yes, this is actually a technical term. I looked it up in Grey's Anatomy. It's when you buy an action figure and the joint, whether it's a shoulder joint, an arm joint, a knee joint, head joint, well, there's a lot of joints now, especially as you get super articulated figures, more articulated every year. The joints get stuck. And it stinks when the joints get stuck because not only does this prevent you from posing the action figure, which is pretty much the main reason adult collectors buy figures, except for those of us who get on the floor and act out adventures. I'm looking at you, Evan. Well, having a stuck joint sucks. It stinks because you can't just return the toy to a store. I mean, sure, you can get your money back, or you could even call the toy manufacturer, and usually they'll refund you your money. But you don't want your money back. You want the action figure, which is why this return policy doesn't make sense, because these figures are usually hard to find, and if you are lucky enough to find a figure you want and you get home and find out that the joint is fused and stuck, well, you don't really have a choice. You can't exchange it for another one because the store probably only got one because it was probably one per case and the rest of the case is gone already and you don't want your money back. And if you jiggle on the joint long enough, hoping that maybe you'll loosen it, well, most likely you're going to super loosen it. In fact, it's going to crack and just break off, and then you're going to wind up with an action figure that does anything but what an action figure should do. You can't play with it, you can't pose it, and it pretty much just looks like trash, and every time you see it, it reminds you of how unhappy you are. And if that's what our action figure collection is doing, it has failed miserably. So the question is, why does this happen? Why do joints get stuck, especially when they're brand new figures and it's kind of random? Some figures get stuck, others don't. It's a blessing, it's a curse, it's random, it's the medieval witchcraft of the toy companies and their voodoo priestesses. No, it's none of those things. Well, it's because action figures are made of plastic. And why does this happen to plastic? Well, to answer that question, we're going to have to do a little science! Yes, science, friend of the Spector Creative channel and a good sponsor of many of these videos. All right, so let's talk about it. So essentially, the term is the coefficients of thermal expansion. A equals B over 2 equals Y over 3. All right, now I'm not going to get into a huge physics lesson, but essentially the coefficient of linear thermal expansion is when a material property with characteristics, let's simplify it. When an item is heated or cold, its length changes by an amount proportional to the original length and change in temperature. All right, so you just saw that with railroad crossings. What about plastic? Plastic's everywhere, right? Almost everything we own is made of plastic, except maybe our food. Although if you're Barbie, food is made of plastic. Plastic starts off usually as little pellets or long pieces of string, which is then melted down by toy-making factories, put into molds, and made into toys. There's two kinds. There's thermoplastics and thermosets. Thermoplastics can be melted. Thermosets cannot be melted again. Most toys are made out of thermoplastics, so if you apply heat to a thermoset, it's not going to bend or break or change. It can't be reheated. A thermoplastic, however, if you apply heat to it, is going to bend in all sorts of directions and not look like its original form. Why is this? Chemistry. Yes, we could go into the different chemical makeup between the two types of plastic, but that's not really what this channel is about. We give overviews. The point is that thermoplastics are what most toys are made of because they allow flexibility and they're safe for children because kids can move them and articulate them. And again, we could get into some of the more hardcore physics of this about how linear and volume expansion relate to the way plastic can essentially grow and shrink. It's called the thermal expansion of solids. And it's caused by the vibration of different molecules inside of the plastic, when different changes in temperature are applied. The molecules are either going to expand or contrast. And the more the temperature is changed, the faster these molecules are going to expand and contrast. If temperature change happens a lot, linear thermal expansion means the product will expand in all directions. And this needs to be allowed for in design calculations. The calculation given is factor times 10 to the negative 6 by length by change in temperature by degrees Celsius. All right, what does all that mean? It basically means that temperature can make things warp. And it's not just plastics. This applies to metals. This applies to almost all types of solids can have this effect. And it can be hot, it can be cold. Just like a Kate Perry and Elmo song sing-along, the more items get hot and then cold, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, it causes this reaction. So when toys are sea-shipped from Hong Kong, as an example, this process happens because in the containers it can get really hot and it can get really cold. And unless you're going to temperature control your containers, which is incredibly expensive and would make our action figures expensive, then that's why it happens. So, can we fix it? Well, yes we can, and we can cook it. That's how we're going to fix it. So let me take you through what happens when this chemical reaction happens to plastic and causes it to expand and then fuse. So, the first thing we're going to need is our Swedish Chef action figure. Once we have him set up, we can bring out our pots and pans. Do not bring them out without a Swedish Chef figure. So I have here a new Marvel Legends figure I bought. This is Lady Deathstrike, and her arm is fused. You cannot move the elbow joint. See? Does not move at all. It is stuck in place. Darn. Am I going to have to throw this out? Am I going to have to just not have her posed on my shelf? No! I'm going to use my officially licensed tongs, and I'm going to place her in boiling water. Yes, boiling water. So you'll want to leave this for about a minute, give or take, not that much longer. Now, again, use your officially licensed tongs and remove her, placing her on a dry surface to cool. Wait another few minutes for it to cool down, and now, lo and behold, by reheating the plastic, you have now caused this chemical reaction. The plastic has become more fluid and will articulate perfectly. All it takes is applying heat once again to plastic that's been fused due to increased temperature drops and increase between hot and cold over and over while the figure was sea-shipped. So here now, Lady Deathstrike is ready to get posed in any way I feel like, and I'm happy, except unless, of course, I'm Wolverine, and then I'm not happy because now there's one more foe for me to fight on Scott's shelf. So, if you get stuck shoulder syndrome, now you know why it happens and what you can do about it. Science is an awesome thing.
The flame is okie dokie.
I hope you enjoyed this continuing look at how science affects our action figures and how you can fix problems with them. Subscribe to this channel, give it a bell ring, and tells YouTube to share with more people. Thanks for watching. See you in the comment section.